This is number 19 off of the homework. Notice we have two radical expressions. We have radical 3x plus 1 and minus a radical x minus 1 equals 2. To get rid of a radical, I need to do the inverse operation, which would be squaring. I don't want to square this expression because then I would have to do double distribute or FOIL with two radical expressions. So instead, I'm going to subtract or add one of these expressions to the other side. I'm going to take the negative expression and add it to the other side. Radical 3x plus 1 equals 2 plus radical x minus 1 on the other side. At this point, we will now square both sides. We can square both sides, and the square and the radical cancel each other out. We end up with 3x plus 1 on the left side, and we'll end up having to FOIL the right side. 2 plus radical x minus 1 times 2 plus radical x minus 1. 3x plus 1 is equal to 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times radical x minus 1 is positive 2 radical x minus 1 plus 2 radical x minus 1 from the inside terms. And then the last terms, radical x minus 1 times radical x minus 1. Notice they're the same expressions inside the radical, so when you multiply two radicals that are the same, the radicals will cancel out. So we'll end up with a positive x minus 1. Now we need to combine our like terms. We'll keep 3x plus 1 following down. We'll add the 4 and the negative 1 to get a 3. We'll combine these two terms to get a positive 4 radical x minus 1, and our positive x will be carried along with it. We'll move the 3 and the x to the other side. We'll end up with a 2x when we subtract over the x, and a negative 2 when we subtract over the 3. 4 radical x minus 1 will stay on the right side. Now we have to undo this radical, so again we're going to have to square. We'll square both sides. FOIL 2x minus 2 times 2x minus 2 will equal 4 squared, which is 16, times radical x minus 1 squared, which is just x minus 1. FOIL this. 2x times 2x is 4x squared, minus 4x from the outside. Inside gets us another negative 4x, and our last term, negative 2 times negative 2, is a positive 4. We'll now get 16x minus 16. Now we have a quadratic, so we're going to have to combine everything to one side. We'll subtract over the 16x after we combine these middle terms. 4x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 16x minus 16. Subtract the 16 to the 8. 4x squared minus 24x, add the 4 and the 16, plus 20 equals 0. Notice how every term has a factor of 4. We can factor out the 4. We'll have left x squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Let's factor the rest. We need two factors of 5 that add to negative 6. Break down the x squared, x and x. So we'll have negative 5 and a negative 1. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. Negative 5 minus 1, or plus a negative 1, gives you negative 6. This 4 doesn't mean anything. We can divide both sides by 4. It will cancel it out. So x minus 5 is equal to 0, and x minus 1 is equal to 0. So x is 5, and x is 1. Now we have to go back to the first part of the problem and look at any restrictions we might have, because we have some roots. Notice we have positive roots, so we're going to have to make sure that anything underneath the radical is a positive number. So we'll set up our restrictions, the restrictions over here on this other side. Restrictions have to be set. We have to have 3x plus 1 greater than or equal to 0. Has to be positive. So 3x is greater than or equal to negative 1. X is greater than or equal to negative 1/3 is our first restriction. And then our second restriction comes from the x minus 1 radical up here. X minus 1 also has to be greater than or equal to 0. So x has to be greater than or equal to 1. Since 5 meets both of those restrictions and 1 meets both of these restrictions, these are both solutions to our problem.